found myself very quickly. I lost my car. Things just didn't work out with the girl. I lost the condo. And so I find myself sleeping on a friend's couch.
Wow.
And until I couldn't anymore. And I ended up sleeping in a storage unit one night. And so I'm sitting in the storage unit and I'm like, I have nothing. I'm $148,000 in debt. Literally no money. My account's overdrawn. And I was like, I got to go home.
Well, welcome back to another episode of Entrepreneur Unleashed. Edward Collins here, your host, and I'm joined in the studio today by Andrew Loranger, who is a partner in Millennium Mortgage, and they're located right in Miami. And I'm so excited to have him here because one of the things that you guys understand about me is I'm interested in helping you guys shortcut your journey of success, and that shortcut process is best found in learning from the footsteps of others, the individuals who've come before you, learning from their struggles and their triumphs. So I'm so happy to have Andrew here because his story. Let's just get right into it. Andrew, I appreciate you just jumping in here and being so willing to share authentically.
Yeah, absolutely.
Based on who you are and where you've been. So
for sure.
So tell me a little bit about, before obviously becoming an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
I'm really always interested in origin story. So tell me a little bit about your origin story. Where did Andrew start from?
Yeah, for sure. So I actually grew up in a very, very small rural country town called Winchester, Virginia.
Winchester, Virginia.
So it was out in the sticks. You know, we grew up. Well, I grew up avoiding country music, but that was all that was playing. I always had this like inner desire to be in the city. There was just something in me. I was obsessed with New York, but I was like living in the country and I just felt like I didn't belong. Mm-hmm. So I was like the outlier or the outcast in like almost every community within my small town because I was just like, I'm not meant to be here. This just doesn't make sense for me. It's not in alignment with who I feel like I am. And so that was like basically how my youth kind of was dictated by that belief of like, I don't fit in.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I grew up in the country. My first job was actually at a buffet. I was like working on the front lines as like a host. And then I got a job on a farm actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
that's definitely unique. Okay.
Yeah, man. So my dad actually saw I was like goofing off at work, goofing off at school, and he wanted to teach me a valuable lesson, which was like what happens if you don't do good in school. My parents are both very collegiate. You know, they worked at universities. They all had higher education degrees.
Okay.
And so yeah, they wanted to teach me the importance of an education. So they put me on work at the farm, baling hay and alfalfa, and it was brutal.
Baling hay and alfalfa.
Yeah,
that's
man.
Not a common journey that we hear in the studio. So
yeah, man.
That's definitely unique. Okay, tell us a little bit about how that potentially impacted your journey. Like
for sure.
I mean, like?
Well, honestly, like there's nothing that compares to like real physical labor. And I think what happens is a lot of entrepreneurs today, they've never really experienced that. Maybe they haven't done plumbing or welding or experienced these trades. And so they oftentimes don't have the appreciation when they're in the grind of being like, look, I've done things that are a lot harder and pay a lot less. And so that was something that looking back on it, I can appreciate now. So I definitely appreciate my dad for like putting me through that. But at the time it was horrible. It was horrible. I mean, I would get there at the crack of dawn. The sun was just, breaking the mountains, and I would just be working, sweating. I had the worst farmer's tan you could possibly imagine. And so by the end of the day, my dad would come and pick me up, and I would get in the car, knocked out. I would knock out before we even left the dirt road.
That's hard work.
Yeah,
that's
man.
hard work. That's the impact.
Yeah, so it was great. It was a good experience. Anytime that I feel like maybe I'm getting a little too prideful or things just aren't, where I think they should be, or I feel like I'm not as grateful as I should be for whatever area in my life, or season I'm in at the time, I always go home. I always fly home because I'll drive to that farm, or I'll drive to my high school or middle school, or I'll drive somewhere in this country town. And I'll be like, man, this is like where I came from. And it's such a humbling experience. Like I could be here right now. There's a lot of people that I went to school with that are still there.
Right.
And so they never left town, and they have 3, 4, or 5 kids. Not saying that that's a bad thing, but they're working these lower income jobs and they think that this is like all that life is. And I think that it's so important to like get out of your hometown or get away from your parents or get away from like whatever confines you feel like you grew up in. Because that's what I did. And that's how I would have never had the experience of understanding that there was a whole nother world out there.
Yeah. Stretching is definitely important.
Yeah,
stretching
absolutely.
out of your comfort zone. And I know that having struggles are important too. I think struggle is a critical component to learning. Like
100%.
After all, babies learn to crawl when their toys are just out of reach.
Yeah.
So putting yourself into a struggle environment, like you were baling hay and alfalfa on the farm. What was the transition? Like what did you do? What caused the transition from that?
Yeah,
to
for sure.
was next?
So actually, my mother worked at the university that was my alma mater.
Okay.
So it was always like this direction had been like carved out for me.
Okay.
Which was you're going to go to this school, you're going to study whatever they have available, within their curriculum. And so you're going to get a degree and then you're going to go do whatever, right?
Okay.
Whatever you decide to do. And so my dream was always, I wanted to be an architect. And I wanted to be an engineer. I was always an artist growing up. I was into music. I was very creative.
Okay.
And so I was like, man, I'm going to either go to Virginia Tech to be an architect, or I'm going to go to a music school, or I'm going to do something like that. But architecture was always like my dream. And so when I went to this college, I had been goofing off like all of high school. So I didn't have the grades to go anywhere that I actually wanted to go. So I actually ended up going to this school because my mom had worked there for like 20 years. And so I got in and...
So it wasn't what you knew, it's who you knew.
Yeah, exactly. It was that type of scenario. And so, no, I got in and all they had was like business and they had some music. It was a music school, but I just wasn't into it anymore in that manner. And so I was like, man, I guess I'll go for business. The only other option is like nursing or like English or something. And I just don't see myself doing any of that. So yeah, I went to school for business. I got a degree in accounting. And it's so funny because growing up, I hated math. It was actually my worst subject.
Okay.
And that's what I do today is math. So go figure. So yeah, that's what ended up happening. I went to school and I met a really good friend of mine. We're still best friends to this day. He's actually my business partner at Millennium Mortgage.
Okay.
He was like the guy that founded the entire concept of our company. And so we were really good friends in college and he lived in New York. And I already told you I had this obsession with New York. So I'm like, dude, I have to come to New York. I need to be there. Like I've always seen it on TV and I loved it. And so he's like, fly out. So I went to New York several summers back to back and I was obsessed with it. Every time summer break would happen, I would go with him to New York.
Go to the Big Apple and just enjoy life.
Yeah, it was amazing, man. And so like one summer we lived with his mother in the Bronx and we used to commute in and I worked at the 92nd Street Y.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
yes. Okay.
And yeah, man, it was a journey. So I was like in love with the city and I had never experienced anything like this. And it was like every time I would go to New York and come back, I had a different perspective on life. I had a different perspective on the town and like it was just more of an inclination of or really a solidification of this idea that I'm not meant to be here. Like there's so much more out there.
Such a big diversity between New York City and Winchester. So
yeah, man.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about like talk us through the process of leaving, like because you made a decision to actually leave Winchester. So what was that process like for you?
Sure. So after college, well, towards the tail end of college, everyone's looking for jobs. What's my career going to be? Where am I going to go? And so I ended up getting an opportunity with Edward Jones Investments. They fell in love with me. And they were like, oh, you could, bring people in, you could create relationships. You're really good at this. And so they were like, fly out to St. Louis. We're going to fly you to our home office through this career development program. You're going to study for your Series 7, 66. If you pass all this, we're going to fly you out, pay for you to live there for 6 months, train you, and then we're going to plant you your own office somewhere, wherever you want to be. And so I'm like, look, are you going to plant me an office in New York City? And they were like, yes, we will.
This is where I want to be.
So they're like, yes, absolutely, we'll do it.
Okay.
So I'm like, all right, it's a no-brainer. So I end up leaving to St. Louis. I'm there for 6 months. It was like I did not like St. Louis at all. I would not.
And it was like not New York City, that's for sure.
It's not Miami either. It's the dead of winter.
Yeah.
And so it just, man, there I learned so much. I had gotten my Series 7, 66, and then I passed those, and then they flew me out, and I was just learning the roles, and I was making friends, and I never left for college.
Okay.
So this was kind of like my first time away from home.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Besides New York, obviously, and this was like a more extended period of time, and I kind of like went a little crazy with drinking and partying and going out, and I really wasn't taking my job seriously because my college was a mile and a half from my house growing up.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
so it was like like I was still a homebody.
You were sheltered.
Yeah, exactly. So man, I was out here. I was like finally 21, and I was just going crazy, and I didn't take it seriously at all. So time came for us to like launch our branches, and I was like, I still have this trajectory. I'm going to New York, and they were like, we're not putting you in New York. Like you can't, because their concept was you have to go knock on doors physically in streets, go knock on the house doors and like pull people into the branch to sell them investments. Right.
Wow.
And so they were like, you can't door knock in New York. Where are you going to go to the brownstones or into the, the high rises? It's not going to happen. And so they were like, we don't want you in Long Island. We don't want you out here. We don't want you in Jersey. Like we want you somewhere else. So I was like, all right, well, I guess I'll go to the next biggest city close to home, which is DC. So I went out to DC, started a branch with this company, and man, this thing was like a total failure. Did not work out at all. I knocked on hundreds and hundreds, thousands of doors over the course of 6 or 7 months. I got like 2 clients.
Wow.
And so they kept telling me like, this is what happens. You have to do this for years. And eventually 2 clients turns to 5, and then it turns to 10. And then you build a huge book of business over 10 to 20 years, and then you retire and you're good. Right. But I was like, man, I don't have time for that. I'm not going to be out here knocking on doors. Like this sucks.
It's a long journey, right?
Yeah. So, man, I did that for a little bit. I ended up getting recruited once I got those 2 clients and I had like a book, right? I got recruited by Merrill Lynch.
Okay.
And so they brought me over, but they were like opening this new program at the time. They told me I was going to be an advisor, and I was going to like, have these access to high net worth clients, and the big dogs were going to give me their little leads that they didn't want to touch anymore. Dude, they ended up sticking me in a branch at like a Bank of America for a Merrill Edge program, which was like some new thing that they were starting.
Okay.
And so I'm like, I had this whole thing, like I was going to work for myself, whatever. And the reality was I'm a 9-to-5er at a bank. And there was nothing that I hated more than being a 9-to-5er at a bank. Being told when to be there, being told when I could leave, like days I couldn't take off. And so that did not last very long. I called my buddy who I had been studying for the Series 7 with, my buddy from New York. And he was like, dude, I'm in mortgages now and I'm crushing it. Okay. He's like, I moved down to Miami. And I'm like, why would you go to Miami? Isn't it hot down there? Like, is that even a thing? And he was like, just fly down, visit. I'll show you what we're doing. And it was kind of like out of the Wolf of Wall Street. He's like, this is what I made this month. And I'm like, there's no freaking way. That's like my annual salary. And then he was like, yeah, I swear. So I flew down there. Of course, he shows me his check. He shows me the whole operation. We like that week we were on boats. We were like out in Brickell. We were going to the club. We were doing all these fun things. And I was like, man, I love Miami. I'm moving here.
Okay.
And so I went back to DC. Within 2 weeks, I had studied for and passed my mortgage license, sublet my apartment, sold my car, and got rid of everything to where I had 2 bags, and I moved down to Miami.
Wow. So you actually, you made a decision.
Yeah.
And you implemented.
Yeah, immediately.
Okay.
There was like no time for like thinking about it. I just was like, the day I got back, it was late November. It was cold as shit. I had just left Miami, and so I wrote an email to the boss and at Bank of America, and Merrill, and I was like, I'm done. I cannot do this anymore. Like, I quit, right? And so of course, in that type of role, they're like, all right, just leave. You're done. You know. So I gave him my 2 weeks notice. That meant nothing. I was fired the next day. And then man, it was like, I just started studying every day. And so I would study for like 8 hours a day. And then at night I would like pack up my stuff and decide what I was going to keep. I would give things to Goodwill. I listed my car. I did all these different things, found someone to sublet the apartment. And so, 2 weeks later I was in Miami.
Okay.
And
so obviously that was it had to have been a stressful situation for you.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you're going from something you knew to something you didn't know.
Exactly. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about what thought processes you went through.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've done crazy things like that before. That wasn't the first time, that I've just up and made a decision and went crazy. And I think in that moment, I am more fueled off of like the vision of what's going to be than like the fear of the unknown or the fear of what I'm losing or what I'm leaving. It was more like I get so obsessed. I'm like almost OCD in a sense to where when I have an idea or a vision, I get so obsessed on one track mind. I can't think about anything else. I don't have time for relationship. I don't have time for this. And work-life balance is very difficult for me for this reason. But I think like a lot of entrepreneurs, we get so obsessed. Like this is all or nothing. I'm going all in. And so this is what I do with mostly everything.
Oh, yes.
And so, man, I went all in on this vision of I'm going to live in Miami. I'm going to make, all this money. I'm going to have this beautiful apartment on the water. I'm going to do this. I'm going to have a girl like Latina. I'm going to, all these things. And so I was so obsessed with that vision that like nothing else mattered.
Right.
And it was just, this is what I'm doing. and I made the decision and I made it happen.
Now, I often see entrepreneurs go through this cycle where they get excited about an idea, and they have all this energy. Then they start to develop that idea, and in that development process, some of that energy gets lost. And they don't actually get to the point where they're expanding the idea. They just start to develop it, and then there's a new shiny object. Have you ever gone through anything like that?
Yeah, of course.
So tell us a little bit about that for you.
Yeah, I think it's not so much, I mean, maybe it is the loss of the desire, or like it starts to fizzle out a little bit. That could have one, that could be one reason. But I think more so than anything, it's that fear starts entering in. And when fear starts entering in, like, you have faith versus fear. And when you have that vision and you're all obsessed and you make those decisions, that's why I was able to do that in such a short period. It's 2 weeks. Like, most loan officers take these tests 3, 4, 5 times. It takes them like 6 months, right? And so it's like, I think if you implement in such a short period of time and you don't wait,
you don't give your time.
Yeah,
you don't give yourself time to actually allow fear to get in and derail you.
And so that's been huge. Is like, whenever you have an idea, like, implement fast. Make a decision fast. Don't sit on it too long. When you do sit on it too long, or like you said, when you're like mid-process, the fear starts coming in and the doubt starts coming in. And that's why it's so important to like really listen to yourself and your own desires and write your vision down and really make it plain so that you're like, this is what I'm doing. And then, man, it's hard. It's a lot easier said than done.
Oh, goodness.
Because fear, like, dude, I deal with it right now. I'm building a studio. It's nothing like this, but I'm building a studio of my own. And, as I'm in the process of building it, I'm like, is anybody going to watch this? Like, should I even record? What am I going to talk about?
Right.
And it's like, should I even do it? And I think it goes to like getting people on your team and getting people in line with your vision. If like, I have a great relationship with my mom and my dad, they don't always understand my vision. They actually like might even be repulsed by it because it's like the polar opposite of their.
Well, they're academics.
Yeah, exactly.
That's their mantra.
But they've always supported it, right? And so you have to like really find people, or at least I do. The only way that I overcome it is to find people who support my vision and people who can even help me implement it.
I look at it a little bit along the lines of, you are what your network is.
Oh, for sure.
So tell me a little bit about like the network that you've been able to develop over time that's helped you to become who you are now.
Yeah, of course. Well, I think like finding people who are where you want to be in every aspect, whether it's faith, finance, fitness, family, right? A lot of times when we're like in one of these pillars, we try to do it all on our own. So like fitness is a huge part of my life. That's one of my primary pillars of like my functionality as a human. If I don't work out in the morning, I have a really bad day, And so for me, it's like, if I want to, I guess, go after this and really be good at it, I have to find other people who are good at it. So some of my best friends are really hardcore gym heads.
Okay.
They're really good at, yoga, or they're good at some type of functional movement, and it's actually their bread and butter. That's how they do business. So I have friends that are really good trainers.
Okay.
And so I learn from them, and by being around them, naturally, like I pick up good techniques and I avoid injury. And if something hurts, like I can ask them and they tell me
how to fix it.
Exactly, right? So it's like that network has helped me propel and become better in that specific area of my life. Similarly, like when I was going all out on this thing several months back, like I really lost track with my faith journey, and like faith is a huge component of my life. So I had to start getting around people who are really involved in the church or really involved in their faith walk, so because like when I start feeling like that's drifting, I got to surround myself with other people in community, because and it's all about community and everything. And then my business endeavor, like most of my close friends, of course, I told you I've got friends that are trainers, friends in the church. Most of my really close friends are all realtors.
Okay.
Because that's my business. I get my business from my agents, and my agents become my friends, and that's how I continue to get more business, and that's how they trust me. So it's all about your community. It's all about your network. I mean, that's the only way that we can excel.
Oftentimes I see when I'm sitting down and I'm talking with business owners, a common theme is that they have ups and downs, but sometimes those downs are pretty traumatic. Like some pretty challenging things that they've gone through. Have you found that to be part of your path?
Yeah, for sure. It's crazy, man. I've been down a lot of times. Okay. I've been down a lot of times. One time in particular that was pretty, it was pretty intense for me, and I'll never forget it. And I think it really characterized my journey and like helped me get where I am is, I was running a mortgage branch in downtown Miami. Me and my buddy, we had 15 guys working for us, different friend.
This is before Millennium.
This is before Millennium, yeah. So a buddy of mine, we had been working for this company, and so I get a call from the CEO, and I wasn't like, by any means, I wasn't the top producer or anything. I just had a good work ethic, and I kind of, in my opinion, I did the bare minimum, but in Miami, a Northerner's bare minimum is a little
different. A little different, exactly.
So, yeah, man, I got promoted relatively quickly. The owner of the branch that we had been working at, he'd left and started his own endeavor. So he completely left the business and, he started his own thing. So that place, it became a new company. They separated. And so the CEO calls me and he's like, hey, do you want to start your own branch? You and your buddy, we want to, set this thing up. And so we did. We built this huge operation. The guy financed the whole thing. Wow. And we had 15 loan officers working for us. And it was a major operation. We had leads coming in and everybody was on the phone. I had auto dialers set up and it was just a huge phone operation.
When was this? What year
I think this was 2016 and 17.
16, 17, okay.
And so we blew up quick and we were hiring. In the matter of 1 year, we had outgrown 3 offices.
Wow.
And so we had to get
That's tremendous growth.
Yeah, and it was all in the same building, so we kept going up floors.
Okay.
Until the final year, we ended up going down a floor because that was the only bigger space available.
Okay.
And so, yeah, we got a massive operation. It was amazing. We had in-house, processing staff, people to collect conditions. We just had it was an incredible operation, man. And it was so great to like go into the office and like motivate the team every morning. And it was fun, man. It was a really good time. It was stressful, of course. And so my same buddy from New York, him and I had this concept where we were like, man, we go out to restaurants all the time. It's such a pain in the ass checking out. Mm-hmm. And so we built this mobile app. We had this, it started as an idea.
Okay, so wait a minute. We're transitioning now from
mortgage
to some sort of technology.
Yeah, and so this was the segue of my demise at the time because I told you I'm the all or nothing type of guy,
exactly.
Right?
Okay.
And so we had this idea, like we're going to start this tech company, and it's going to be a mobile app to help people check out at restaurants. And it was very intuitive. It was a great concept, and everybody was on board. I mean, we hired developers. I had a decent amount of savings. He did too, and I had a crazy like open credit line too.
Okay,
it was just out of control. And so, it was crazy, man. We went all in on this thing, and I completely neglected the branch. Like my mortgage branch neglected it completely, and I went all in on this tech company. And so
that was the shiny object.
That was my shiny object. That was the thing that kind of deterred me from building this whole operation out to what it could have been, which, looking back, probably could have been huge. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, man, we went all out. We went all out on this thing, and it was like a total failure, like flop. And so. I mean, it could have been good at like looking back at it. I know exactly what we could have done in order to make it better. Like hindsight's 2020, and it probably would have taken off. But like we were in the app store, we had all these consumer downloads, but we couldn't. There was no like restaurant that would allow us to implement it there because we needed access to the back end of their POS system.
No one wanted
and they're like, we're not going to give you our POS system. That's like the lifeblood of the business,
Right.
And so like there were things now looking back, we could have definitely done things differently. White labeled the product, even just done some licensing thing, whatever. But yeah, man, it was bad. I remember I went to New York. I was walking the streets for like 4 months trying to sell this restaurant. I was on 3rd Ave, 6th. I'm up, down, all over the place, right? And so we got a couple places that were interested, but I was like, dude, I look at my account one day and I'm like, where the hell's all my money? Like, and I'm in all this credit card debt. It was bad. And we had been paying developers and UX designers and all these people. And like, I was tapped out.
Wow.
So I'm like, I got to go back to Miami. I still have a place there. I fly back to Miami. I have 2 employees at my branch. I was so disconnected.
Wow,
I didn't even know.
Recognize that everyone left.
People had left. The assistant manager had fired other people, and like things were there was a dynamic that was like really bad once I left, where things just weren't working out. The leads started to dry up, and then I wasn't there to like talk to the CEO to get different types of leads and go to different. So it was not good. It was not good. Wow. We had this huge office, all this overhead, and there was no employees. And so, yeah, man, it was really bad at this time.
So the tech startup,
floundered. Flop. Yeah, it was a flop.
Your branch flopped.
Yeah.
What did you do?
So I have a conversation with the CEO, and he's like, we're going to shut down this branch, and we just want you to liquidate the whole thing, sell everything, and just get rid of it.
Which was the largest office in the building that was available at the time.
It was the largest office at the company.
Wow.
And so he was like, it's liquidate. Yeah, it's done. So I ended up just selling everything and like, whatever I could get for it is what I basically lived on for a little bit. And so
still in Miami at the time?
I was still in Miami. And so, man, I was still so obsessed with this business that I was like, I have to make this freaking thing work.
Okay.
And so I had been living at the Icon in Brickell at the time, had the car that I was like always had on my wall as a kid. I had that car.
Right.
I had this beautiful girlfriend, Cuban, and dude, within a very short period of time, I lost everything. Like it was 3 months where I was still trying to like live this life that I had been living.
Yeah.
And trying to keep up with this persona of who everybody thought that I was on Instagram, because I was that guy, right? But I wasn't until I wasn't.
Until you weren't.
And then I tried to maintain this image, and it was me trying to maintain the image for like the external that ended up just completely crushing me. And so I found myself very quickly. I lost my car. Things just didn't work out with the girl. I lost the condo, and so I find myself sleeping on a friend's couch.
Wow.
And until I couldn't anymore, and I ended up sleeping in a storage unit one night. And so I'm sitting in the storage unit and I'm like, I have nothing. I'm $148,000 in debt, literally no money. My account's overdrawn. And I was like, I got to go home. And so I called my parents. Yeah. And I was like, I have to come home. Like I explained the situation. I'm in tears. I'm crying. I'm on like this bench. I go on this little bench on the river. And so I'm just sitting there, I'm crying. I call my parents. I'm like, I got to come home. I need to borrow some money so I can get home. I need a rental car. So they helped me out. I got a rental, packed all my shit in it, went to Virginia. The whole ride home, man, I'm like bawling because I felt like a total failure. I lost everything. I was like living so grand.
You had your dream home, your dream car, your dream woman, and it was all gone.
Yeah. So it was gone, man. It was a pretty devastating experience at the time. This is kind of what sparked my personal development journey, because on the ride home, a friend had suggested you need to start listening to Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, Outwitting the Devil.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing mentor. Yeah.
So these were the books that I started listening to like on the journey home, like whatever it was, 12 hours. I pit stopped at a buddy's house in Atlanta. Okay. And so I drop off the car, I go home. I'm just there like reading and just writing in my journal, which I actually found a couple weeks ago. I started reading through it and I'm like, dude, this is crazy what I went through. Wow. And where my mindset was at the time even. And so, yeah, this was where I was. I was like dead broke. I went to an attorney in Virginia and I tried to file bankruptcy to pay off all this debt. And he was like, you can't file bankruptcy because you just moved here. You need 6 months of domicile. Right. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, what am I supposed to do? This shit's like $11,000 a month. Yeah. And so I ended up calling the CEO of the mortgage company that I had been working for in Miami.
Okay.
His home office was in Maryland, in Glen Burnie, which is outside of Baltimore. I'm like, dude, I need a job. I've got nothing. Like, this is my situation. He was like, I thought he was going to tell me to go kick rocks. Yeah. He's like, dude, come over, check out the operation, and we'll put you on the phones. But you're not managing anything. You're going to just be a sales guy. I was like, all right, fine. I need whatever I can get. And so like the thing is,
beggars can't be choosers.
Dude, I trained all these 15 people that worked for us. So I know how to do this.
Right.
This is my thing. Like I could sell anybody with this specific product on this specific way. It was just I'm an expert at this. So I knew that this is what I had to do to pay off the debt. And so I ended up I went on Craigslist. I rented an apartment for $500 a month. It was a little room in a guy's apartment in a basement.
Big difference from the Icon.
Yeah. And I was sleeping on, I found a picture of it actually. After I went through the journal, I pulled out my iPad that I haven't seen in years. And the last few pictures were from Maryland. Okay. And I had a picture of the room that I was sleeping in. It was crazy because in the picture, there's like this little thin mat, like a futon mat that I was sleeping on the floor. I didn't have a dresser because I couldn't afford one. So all my clothes are piled out by shirts, underwear, like pants, everything on the floor. And then I have my Bible on the side and my notebook. And this was like how I lived in this time period.
Wow.
And so, there was no service in the place. So I would wake up in the morning. I would go straight to the gym. I worked out for 2 hours or so. I went to the office. I worked 15, 16, 20 hours, whatever it took that day. I would go home. On the way there, I would download a podcast or download an audiobook or something because I had no service in the apartment. And I would listen to it before bed or as I was cooking dinner or whatever. Right. I would go to sleep. Do the same thing over and over again.
That was your routine.
That was my routine. And I was so set on my goal of getting back to Miami and leaving this place. I didn't make friends. I made 2 friends the entire time I was there just because I met them at the gym.
Okay.
But I didn't go out. I went to one dinner one time with those two friends. But it was like I was so set on getting back to Miami.
You had a mission.
Yeah, that was it. My mission was to get back to Miami, pay off the debt, get back to Miami. That's when I got into like Dave Ramsey. Started listing out my debts from smallest to largest, did the whole snowball thing.
Yep.
I would start paying off the small debts. When I got a big check, I would pay off a big one. And before I knew it, like about 6 months had passed and I had paid off all the debt.
Wow.
And so the next couple of months, the thing was I had made like this commitment, an agreement with the owner of the company that as soon as I paid off the debt, we put a date on it. In January, I was going to go back to Miami and start another branch. January comes, I've got some savings. I had this conversation. He's like, I don't want a branch in Miami. Like, that's done. I'm like, are you kidding me?
We had a conversation.
Yeah, we had a whole agreement about this. And he was like, I'm not doing it. You can either stay here or you can go, but we're not doing anything in Miami. We really want you here.
Wow.
And so I'm like, dude, I'm not staying here.
No.
I will not be.
Yeah. At the end of the day, you were in love with the city life.
Yeah.
You enjoyed the lifestyle in Miami,
Yeah.
what it all had to offer. You just had to figure a way to get back.
That was it. So I ended up getting a job with this guy from New York. I flew to New York to interview with someone that my friend knew from Miami, some big hot shot in the mortgage industry. He'd been in the game for like 30 years. And so he was like, yeah, we're expanding into Miami and I need people on my team.
Okay.
It wasn't until like a year later I found out this guy was like barred from the industry, so he didn't have a license. So he was making connections and writing. I was writing the business, me and like a handful of other people, right? And so I learned so much from this guy. I learned how to like walk confidently into a room, how to like believe in myself, how to, man, when I got to Miami, I had never done a purchase ever. For the last 4 years or however long. It was all refis. Everything was refis on the phone. And so I get to Miami, I'm telling everybody, I am the luxury and jumbo mortgage purchase expert. I put it on my Instagram bio. I'm the expert. I do jumbo luxury.
Manifested it into reality.
It's like either manifest or fake it till you make it. But
one way or the other.
And it was crazy because my first deal I got when I was down there was from this woman at the Armani Casa.
Okay. Yep.
It was like a $2.5 million deal. And I'm like, oh my God, I've never done a deal over 400 grand. And so I get this deal. It was rough. It was rough. It was very rough. This loan had gotten denied from 17 banks.
Wow.
And so it came to us and we found a way to get it done.
Okay.
And so we got it closed. And from that day on, I got like 6 or 7 deals in the building that just like made my whole year blow up.
Yeah, that was a year.
Yeah. And so then COVID hit. And so this guy basically was just like, we're done. Like the business is shot, go do your own thing. So I kind of meandered. I was drinking and partying and doing my thing during COVID and on boats and just like, you know, I had some cash and I was just like, what do I do?
Swept back into the lifestyle.
Exactly. I got swept back into Miami.
Okay.
And so, a friend of mine who had been in the business, he was like, dude, you're always posting on Instagram. Like you're always posting your life and all these things. He's like, this looks like crazy. Like you should be selling something. Right. You're just like, promoting nothing.
Exactly.
So he's like, how can you monetize this? And so he shifted my perspective into, I need to start posting about real estate. And start posting about mortgages. So I kind of shifted my content and then I started getting business just flowing in once COVID ended, where it was just like all of my deals now come from Instagram or my agents that I met through Instagram.
Wow.
And so, that's when my buddy approaches me and he's like, I'm starting this branch or I'm starting this whole operation called Millennium Mortgage and you're really good at getting the business, but you're terrible with the back end stuff. I'm like, absolutely. Like I hate the back end processing, calculating income, looking at documents, all that stuff. And he's like, well, why don't you delegate that to me and my team? We'll take care of all the back and you take care of the front and just do your thing. Wow. I was like, absolutely.
That's a partnership made in heaven for you.
Yeah, amazing. And so this guy is so good. He runs the entire operations division. They handle all the paperwork, pre-approvals, calculating income, looking at documents, collecting documents, everything. And I just have to go out and get business, which is what I'm naturally good at.
Okay. So you're more of the visionary and sales guy.
Exactly.
And he's more of the implementer.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah. I'm an opener. He's a closer.
Okay. Yeah. I like it.
But together we get these deals done. And this is kind of where we are now. We've expanded dramatically. I have 3 assistants at this point, 3 direct assistants, 2 that are just like really close with me. We have a huge team that's out in Davie, and we're growing every day. We're always bringing on loan officers, and we're actually now going to be opening up another branch in. We were looking at Brickell, but I think it's probably going to end up being Wynwood that I'll be managing. Okay. So
I'm so impressed by your commitment to your faith And I'm just curious, like, how do you see that playing a role in your growth as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's vital. Everything that I've done, I've noticed there's a direct correlation when I start going into the party lifestyle, or I start like backing away from my faith, or I start falling into the traps of Miami, or wherever I am. It's like it's almost like a direct, like, I don't want to call it a punishment, because like that's not how it works.
Right. Exactly.
But it's like there's a direct correlation from when I fall off the path, like my finances suffer, my mental health suffers, my emotional health suffers, and when I like get back on, things just work out. It's amazing. Like, the money starts flowing in. I start building relationships. I'm like feeling happy again. My fitness is on point. Right. And when I start veering off again, it's the same thing. And then when I start getting really successful and the money starts flowing in and I get a little too big, the pride starts coming in.
Yep.
There goes the fall again. So it's crazy, man. My faith has played such an incredible journey. And I notice it now. I'm so self-aware of the fact that when I fall off of reading the Bible, or I fall off of prayer, or I fall off of meditation and the word, like, things just fall apart in my life. And it's just, I think it's because
so true.
Like, God has just such a like incredible plan. And when he knows like this is your plan and you start falling off of it, like he starts like kind of letting you know what's going on. And hopefully, at least, you know, I'd love to get better at my discernment, but hopefully like you're well aware enough that like you're kind of going off the path so that you can bring yourself back on. And that's why, going back to what I said, it's so important to have community of other people, other believers, or if you work out every day, you want to have other people that are like in that circle so that you could always stay on path and on point.
Yeah, I think that the logistics, if you will, of entrepreneurship, they require so many different things. And if you had to point to 2 or 3 things that have been most impactful to where you are right now, what would those things be?
I would say first and foremost, it's faith.
Okay.
You know, that's just played a unreal part of my life. It's just, yeah, that's it. I mean, that's number one, first and foremost, faith. Yeah, it has to be. Because without that, it's like, imagine, I try to think sometimes, I'm like, when people fail and they don't have faith, like, what the hell do they do?
Exactly.
I don't understand what they do, because the only thing that got me through that terrible moment was the fact that I had the faith and belief that I was going to get through it, that God was going to provide for me, which he did, and that I was going to get back to Miami. But what happens when you don't have that faith? Like, are you just relying on yourself? Are you relying on like hope that the phones might ring, or that, you know, you might be able to get business? It's like, you have to rely so much on yourself when you don't have faith. And I can't rely on myself. You know, it's like, I don't have the strength to be able to manage all these people and to do all these things on my own. Like, it stresses me the hell out. I can't do it. And, you know, I kind of run out of steam. And it's when I get into my prayer life, or I get into the word, that I'm like, wow, I don't have to do this on my own, because I have the strength that comes from God. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden I feel like rejuvenated, and I have all this energy, and I can talk to people, and I can do certain things. That has nothing to do with me. I have to like give that, you know, glory to where it comes from. So that's huge. The second part would be, I think, failing.
Okay.
Failing has played such a pivotal role in my journey, that it's just like, I embrace failure now. I embrace failure. I take it on, because I know that when I fail in something, like, it's going to suck. It's going to be terrible. When I'm going through it, it's going to hurt. It's going to make me want to do something bad, you know? Exactly. But it's like, it's in that moment of the failure that you're really pushing through. When you want to give up and you don't, coming out on the other side of that is where you're like, wow, I went through all this for a reason. You end up developing skills you never knew you had, uncovering certain characteristics of yourself that you never knew was even possible. You start just realizing things about yourself and about others. Your awareness becomes so much more impactful. And so, yeah, man, failure is huge. Failure and faith have been my 2 biggest strong suits, things that I would say that I would never be even anywhere close to where I am without.
Wow. Well, from the outside,
yeah,
you obviously appear to have put yourself into a position of success again.
Yeah,
you're back on the right path for you, your authentic path. I'm curious, where are the things that you're currently struggling with? Like, still, like,
yeah,
obviously, again, outwardly, everyone looking at you says, "Wow, and Andrew has his stuff together.
Yeah,
he's on the right path." But where is it that you're where are you still struggling? Where are you still finding lack? What are those things?
Dude, that's an amazing question. It's so funny. I was just actually thinking about this morning.
Okay.
I was taking a shower and I'm like, man, because I had somebody yesterday, they call me and they're like, dude, you're crushing it. This happens all the time. People are like, dude, you're closing all these loans. We see your Instagram, you're doing all this business, millions and millions of dollars. And I'm like, yeah, that's all cool, but it's just my job,
exactly.
You know? And so one of the struggles that I'm kind of going through right now is uncovering more so like who I am, because I'm not in a place of survival anymore where I have to make this money because I've got all this debt looming over me and I'm like dying, you know,
the sweat coming down your
it's
brow.
It's more so
exactly.
like I've got good reserves now. I know the business is going to continue to come because I've built incredible relationships and I have a track record of being fruitful with my delivery. And so it's like now, like, who am I and how can I create an impact on others? And so that's the journey that I'm going through right now, because it's not all about the money. I got the last 4 months back to back over and over again were the largest months that I've ever had in my career. Last month, was bigger than the month before. That was bigger than the month before. Every one of those months was bigger than my entire year last year. So I've made a lot of money this year. And it's like, there's no fulfillment in it whatsoever. None at all. Yeah. And it's so crazy because we were fed this like idea that the money's going to fulfill us. And dude, it's cool. I just bought like my dream motorcycle. I love riding. Riding is like my thing. It's my
We'll have to go.
Yeah.
I enjoy riding too.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That's awesome. So yeah, man, I love riding. I just picked up a bike. It was like nothing. It was like a drop in a bucket to pick it up. And so you can do fun things. I travel once every month somewhere. Okay. Colombia. I'm going to Dominican Republic next month. I'm going to Paris the month after that. So it's like I do travel a lot now and I get to enjoy things.
You're adding to your library of life.
Exactly. But it's like those are fun experiences, but there is no actual fulfillment in that. And so because you come back from the trip and you're like, that was cool, but what's next?
Exactly.
Or you get a big check and you're like, that was great, I can go do fun things, but what's next? And so my journey right now is kind of uncovering where is that impact? How can I help other people? Okay. Not just from a monetary perspective, because that only lasts so long. Like if you're not fulfilled by money, just giving money to other people, it might solve their problems temporarily, but it's not going to fulfill them either. So it's like, what is that impact that I can create that's going to be generational? Wow.
Okay. And you're still obviously working.
I'm still working on that. That's a daily thing. Okay. That's the other one is going back to the faith thing. I feel like I've fallen a little bit off, and it's because it's a daily journey. It's hard. It's hard to like be disciplined. Discipline in any area is very difficult. And it's something that you have to maintain constantly. I mean, how easy is it to fall off a healthy lifestyle, start eating chips? You have one chip here, you have two there, you have ice cream one night, and then you're having cake. And before you know it, it's like a daily thing. Like now I have to have ice cream after every single meal, for instance, right?
Yeah.
So that's just like one example of it's so easy to fall off your discipline. It's hard to like build those habits. And so for me, it's like I have to now go back to what my night routine is because I'm working until midnight, working until 1 a.m. And then I wake up and I'm exhausted. So I don't do my prayer. I don't do my word, whatever, right? So now I have to like cut things off at a specific time and I have to be more disciplined about that. So yeah, it's a journey. It's something that is always a challenge every single day. And then once you get into the routine, it's like, how do I make this routine not dull?
Wow, yeah. I found I'm in the same boat. There are definitely times where I fall off from a discipline standpoint. I've learned to use friction in order to help, both adding friction and removing friction. So for instance, with regard to eating healthy, basically removing the friction is to get rid of all the junk food in the house.
It starts in the grocery store.
Exactly. And adding friction is just putting those stop points, like with regard to faith, having the Bible literally on your bed. Yeah. So you have to touch it before you go to bed.
Exactly. I had to do that.
Those types of things. Yeah.
No, this morning I did that. I put it on my bed with a journal. So that tonight I have to.
You have to do it.
I have to because like I have to move it in order to lay down.
Exactly.
So yeah, man, those are great, and it's always a journey. Every day is something different. There's always challenges. It's not going to stop, and quite frankly, why would we want it to?
Well, exactly.
because it would be so boring if we had no challenges and everything was just the same every day, or it was always getting, I don't know. It's like we want that fulfillment, and I feel like that fulfillment comes through failure and challenge. And the way that I've always gotten through failure and challenge was through faith.
Well, it sounds your journey's been amazing, and what I'd like to do is I want to make sure that anyone who in the audience who would like to learn more about you and find out about you, or leverage the skill sets that you have, how would they go about finding you?
Sure. So you can find me on Instagram at Drew's the Move. So that's my Instagram handle. I'll be coming out with a website soon that's gonna take you to a plethora of information about me and the podcast that we're starting. And you can also, if you're interested in mortgages or anything finance related, you can go to millenniummortgage.io. Millenniummortgage.io.
Awesome. I'll make sure that all that's in the show notes so that everyone has the ability to get in touch with you. I want to truly, sincerely thank you for just being authentic and being so genuine and open about just sharing your journey.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This has been amazing.
100%. As you guys know, again, I can't say this enough. The easiest shortcut in your path to success is literally to find the people who are where you want to be and learn from them. Whether that's direct outreaches, whether it's the whole concept of mentorship is an amazing thing. Find people who are where you want to be in life and literally just model the things that they've been doing in order to get them there. Where you are right now is a product of the past 3 to 4 years of the habits you've been employing. And if you want to get somewhere different, you have to change who you are, change the habits that you're engaging in, change the things that you're doing on a daily basis, learn from those who have done it, learn from individuals like Andrew, and just make the effort because it's worth it. That whole concept of fulfillment, it's truly worth the effort. I wish you all very well in your journey of success. Bye for now.